Here we look at how does glucose actually enter the cells and what happens when you have type 1 diabetes. So normally, if you so, a lot of things are going on the slide, right? So for now, we are not going. Don't look at tag. Don't look at tag. Imagine is not there, and don't look at the red crosses. Okay, so we are not going to look at red cross right now. Right now, let's look at what happens without the red cross. Okay, so you see number one. What is number one? When you eat food, right, glucose, then glucose has to be uptaken into cells, and the signal is coming from where? Pancreas. Pancreatic beta cells in secret what? Insulin. So insulin is the trigger. Okay, so insulin is what is triggering uptake of glucose. Just see the big picture that the insulin, when the insulin is binding to the receptor, is activating. You see this light kind of coming off. So that means it's activated, and it triggers the signal. You see this green arrow up, triangle, field triangle, green. That means that process will be upregulated. So vesicles containing GLUT4. So GLUT4 is a type of glucose transporter that are found in skeletal muscle, cardiac muscles, and adipose. So what happens is that insulin secretion is triggering uptake of glucose by causing these receptors fuse with the plasma membrane. Okay, then look at 4. Once the fusion happens, then what? Glucose is entering the cell, right? Glucose is the blue dots, little blue dots. So glucose is entering the cells through the glucose transporter into the cells. Then once glucose enters the cell, then what happens? Glycolysis. What else? PPP, right? And you can also store it. So whatever happens here, we have already seen. And then we get a bunch of ATP energy. We'll see that later. But normally that's what will happen. This is how glucose is entering the cell. Someone is a type 1 diabetic. There is a deficiency in the insulin is not being secreted by pancreas, right? So if you don't have insulin, then all of these processes we just saw are not going to happen. And so that will increase blood glucose level, right? Yes? So this is how type 1 diabetes happens. So if there's no insulin, there is no glucose uptake, and that means there is going to be high glucose concentration in the blood, right? So that's not good. So that's what is type 1 diabetes. Now, what happens? So how you remember brain and RBCs, they need glucose as the fuel. So when there is no glucose, no insulin, that will be the red. So follow the red path. All of the red paths will be means that those paths will be inhibited when there is no insulin, right? So no glucose uptake, nothing. But what happens in that case is here we have tag that are stored in adipose tissues, and tag is going to be mobilized. We will immobilize tag, and so see that we make fatty acid and glycerol. So the fatty acids come out, and we make ketone bodies. So we'll learn that later. But you see, acetoacetate, beta hydroxybutyrate, those are ketone bodies. If we have prolonged starvation and if you're not taking medicine to take up glucose, then this thing can happen, which is called ketoacidosis. That's number 10. And ketoacidosis is something where you're actually lowering blood pH because of ketone bodies. Okay, beta hydroxybutyrate is a proton donor, so it will lower blood pH. And you don't want to go there. Blood pH lowering is a really bad thing. Okay, so it's that's called ketoacidosis. And in fact, when another ketone body is formed, it's called acetone, right? The nail polish remover, you get a smell. So actually, doctors do the breath test when, because acetone, your breath will smell like acetone. So that's also indicated that you have ketoacidosis. Brain can either use glucose or ketone bodies as fuel. So if you don't have glucose, if you cannot say glucose, then ketone bodies is what is going to be used as the other source of fuel for brain. And again, we'll learn all of that later in the semester. But here you see the general overview, right? How glucose is entering the cell and how what is happening to it.